Welcome back to the channel. Going through BritBase, I found a few games of Nigel's early games that I hadn't recorded earlier. This one's from 1975 from the Lancashire Open. This features his game against Joe Naujokas when Nigel was actually only aged 9. The game started as a King's Indian attack. All normal stuff. Exchanges in the centre. And here Nigel decides to fianchetto the bishop on b7. You say white's slightly better, but there's not much in it at the moment. The knight's getting a good outpost on either e6 or maybe even e4. And then Nigel decides to give up the bishop pair, which is questionable. And white seems to have more space and a nice position now. Attacking the e-pawn. And white's definitely better with space advantage. Black's got a few problems. Nothing major, just hitting the knight. And the knight finally gets to e6, which is probably going to get exchanged at some point. Although white decides to play bishop h3, pinning the knight, which puts pressure on it, but after an exchange of rooks, Nigel gets out of the pin and attacks the b-pawn. The knights do come off, and I would say now the position is quite equal. It's black's pawn structure is still a little bit loose compared to white's, and white does have the bishop pair. And Nigel decides to push the pawns in the centre, gaining more space. And black finally aims to get rid of the bishop on h3, which was holding that diagonal. And again, you would still say the position's fairly equal going into the endgame. And this is quite an odd move from Nigel, pushing the queen onto the king side. Queen to a2 may have been better in this position, where you can start attacking the bishop and pick up the a pawn. And even though he loses his central pawns, he's got two passed pawns on the queen side, and there's a pawn up. But the bishop's position is probably still equal at this point. But it's preferable to what he played, which I think certainly gives white an advantage. After rook to c6, hitting the b pawn and putting pressure on the king side as well, indirectly. And here bishop to c1's played. I think maybe queen to c4 would have been much better. And after this sort of variation where the rooks come off, the knight has to go back to block the check. And white attacks the central pawns and undermines them. And I think white's in a very good position here. But bishop c1 was played, which wasn't a bad move because it's aiming for g5. And this actually is a mistake. It actually leads to an equal position. f3 is the better move, aiming to strike in the centre. And now white has quite a nice position, even though it's equal material. He's got a lot of pressure on the b pawn, and it would be much nicer to play white in this position. But queen to e3 is in an equal position according to the engine. So black defends the knight, and white offers a trade of queens, which Nigel refuses. And then queen to b7, which is far too passive. I think queen to f4, f5, or queen to g4 would have been better. But h3 is played by white. I think if he plays queen to h3, he probably wins the game, as it forces black on the defensive. And this looks quite nasty for black. He's forced to defend, loses the b pawn, and this is probably winning for white with the passed b pawn and just a generally better position and a pawn up as well. h3 was played instead, to which Nigel decides to keep pushing in the centre. I think the bishop may be better on the b2 to h8 diagonal. And still the pawn's push, but this is actually losing after the pawns are exchanged. And either queen to f3 or queen to f3, threatening the knight again, and then taking the d pawn would be winning for white. But he chooses to enter the endgame with bishop takes f6, which is a complete blunder, because this is now equal with correct play. But after all the trades, black still has this monster d pawn that white has to deal with. And while he's dealing with that, black can get his king to the centre. And now it's still drawn if white plays the correct moves, but unfortunately, as we'll see in a minute, this is a blunder straight away due to the fact he's making the g pawn backward and just weakens the king side and allows black just to take the pawn. I think the idea was to create the passed f pawn, but black can stop it by playing king to d6. This is the actual winning move in the thing. If he plays b5 in that position, it leads to a draw because both sides can queen. For example, b5. And this is actually a drawn position. But king to d6 is the winning move, as the white king has to keep an eye on the b pawn, whereas the black king can now intercept the f pawn. And now the white king has to go and get the b pawn, but unfortunately then now loses his king size pawns. And this is the final move in the game. Obviously, if white takes the h pawn, then black can just take the f pawn and push the h pawn. An interesting game. White was winning for most of the game, and then just one blunder in the end game. But don't forget, Nigel's only nine years old at this point and just starting out his career. But a good win against a 2040 player anyway. Please like and subscribe if you enjoyed the game. I'll be back with more games, probably from 1984, his next tournament, and I'll put some of these extra early games that I found in intermittently. Anyway, thanks for watching, and until next time, bye.